What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. And you guys have been waiting for it. It's finally here. Part 3 of the EP40 Chronicles is finally here. And in part 3, we're going to be going over and asking the big question: will Petey bounce back this upcoming season? We're going to go over some reasons as to why he will. We're going to dive into that. I've come up with some reasons as to why he will. And then at the end of the video, I'll give you my thoughts on what I think will happen. We'll also go over some stats for PD as well in this video. So let's go ahead and not waste any time. However, as I always do, I'd like to thank my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible artwork you see there behind me. So I'd like to thank Gassy Jack Art. You can find Gassy Jack Art at gassyjackart.com. You can also find him on Instagram at Gassy Jack Art. He still has his end of season sale going on where you can buy 4 prints, get 2 of them for free. Go ahead and check him out, gassyjackart.com. Now, let's go ahead and dive right into this. I am going to go ahead and bring up one of my main points. Or actually, let's just start off with the big question itself. Will Petey bounce back next season? That is the big question amongst all Canucks fans, as well as Petey supporters. That's the big question, the big kahuna. Will Petey bounce back next season? And when you really think about it, realistically, Petey has only had one bad season, and that was this past season. The COVID-shortened year, in my eyes, in my opinion, does not count because it was a shortened season, and it wasn't a full season. So you can't really count that towards and have it as a quote-unquote bad season. So realistically, Petey has only had one bad season, which was this past season. And in that said COVID-shortened season, Petey was still good in that season. Even though it was a shortened season and he got the up until that point, he had gotten, I believe it was 60 points in the previous 2 seasons prior to the COVID shortened season. So actually, let's quickly take a look. I have it up. So yeah, 2019, 2020, and 2018, 2019, both seasons, Petey ended with 66 points, 28 goals, 38 assists in 2018, 2019. And then 2019, 2020, he finished with 27 goals and 39 assists. Both seasons, 66 points. And then came the COVID-shortened season where Petey had 21 points in 26 games, 10 goals, and 11 assists. That is still pretty good. And that is not what I would consider bad. 21 points in 26 games, it's pretty darn good for a COVID-shortened season. I mean, he very well could have gone on to have a 70-plus point season if that season hadn't been shortened. So that is why I don't count that as a quote-unquote bad season. So I come back to this point. Realistically, Petey has only had one bad season. Now, here's another thing with the whole Petey and whether or not will he bounce back. This one might rub a few people the wrong way. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm just giving you guys some facts. Which brings me to this point. JT Miller is gone. Yes, Petey didn't magically become the Petey of old after he was traded. And nor did I expect that. Nor did I expect to nor did I expect Petey to magically flip a switch and then turn into the Petey of old because JT Miller was out of town. He got traded. If you really think about it, the noise surrounding the whole rift was still there despite Miller having been traded. So that probably distracted Petey. Now, before anyone gets, says, oh, you're making excuses for Petey, I'm not. I'm just being realistic. Clearly, the noise was still there. It probably was still in the back of Petey's head. That whole locker room was a mess with the whole JT Petey rift, and everyone was feeling it. Everyone was struggling, obviously, except for Quinn Hughes somehow. But there was no way that Petey was going to magically flip a switch and become the Petey of old after the trade. So that's just not realistic. And, the noise was still there. So I think that contributed. And obviously, Petey didn't suddenly change. So that is one reason that I think Petey will bounce back, is because JT Miller is completely gone. Hopefully the noise will have died down, come this season. And it won't be, in his head. He won't be distracted by it. Hopefully the locker room will be in a better situation than it was, when the trade happened. And obviously with the whole trade, there's rumors about the whole the JT side of the locker room, Team JT, Team Petey. There was that whole thing too. And like I just said, the locker room was just in shambles. So on the whole note, talking about Petey and him not coming into camp in shape, I know that's been thrown around a lot. And yeah, it's a fact. He didn't come into camp in shape, and that clearly rubbed people the wrong way, including JT Miller. It ruffled a lot of feathers. But how many times have you heard Petey throughout his career up until this point not come into camp in shape? How many times have we actually heard that? Like heard it like reported? This was the first time. At least from my knowledge and having looked into it, this is the first time we've heard of Petey having not come into camp. Keep in mind, he was coming off that tendonitis injury that it seemed like the team was kind of writing off as having not be serious. Even Petey himself didn't think it was all that serious. He said he figured he just needed some rest and he just needed to rest it. Clearly, it continued being an issue throughout the offseason and during his training. Therefore, he had to, as we mentioned in part 2, he had to work around it and probably couldn't do certain things that he was wanting to do when it came to his training. And here's a really good big point that I really want to hammer down on. And that's players with the skill level and skills that Petey possesses don't just fall off. You don't just mysteriously lose it at the age of 26. You just don't. It doesn't just go away. It's what brought him to the NHL. You don't just lose it once you have a couple good seasons. It doesn't just vanish. It's not magic. No. Petey was obviously born to play hockey. And those skills are what got him to the NHL, as I just said. You don't just lose that at the age of 26. Sure, you can, that skill can diminish at a certain age, like when you get older, but not at 26. Like, say you're getting close to your 40s, yeah, and you used to be like a really good, sharpshooter, and now you're kind of missing the net a little bit at the age of 40. Your peripherals aren't what they used to be, then yeah, but not at the age of 26. You don't just lose that talent and that skill at that age. So there's that point. Here's a good one too. That is more recent. Canucks management are pleased with how things are going this offseason in regard to Petey. We saw an article come out about that. I even spoke about it on this channel. The Canucks management were impressed by Petey coming back to meet with Adam Foote when he was hired. This was back in May when Adam Foote was hired. Petey flew from Sweden, came back to Vancouver, and let me just say, the team didn't ask him to. Petey willingly came back to Vancouver to meet with Adam Foote. We all heard that he had dinner with Adam Foote, Thatcher Demko, and Quinn Hughes. So he met with Foote, spoke to him, they talked, and management was impressed by Petey doing that. And on that note, they have also been pleased with how his offseason has been going. Now, obviously, we don't know exactly what he's been doing with his training, but you would think that the Canucks have likely been keeping tabs on his training, and that's probably something that he talked about with Adam Foote, and Adam Foote probably relayed that to Alvin and Rutherford. So clearly, things are looking good when it comes to this offseason for Petey, and this is a reason why I think he will bounce back, because things are looking good and are looking in the right direction, which leads me to my next point. And I made a video on this. The Canucks are leaning towards keeping him. Now, I know that doesn't have much to do with will he bounce back or not, but I thought I'd throw it in here. The Canucks are leaning towards keeping him. Obviously, that deadline, the July 1st deadline, it is now June 21st. We're 10, 11 days away from said deadline. And yes, the Canucks were listening in on Petey, but it seems like they're not looking to trade him. They are leaning towards keeping him because they are, as I just mentioned, they are impressed with how his offseason is going. They are impressed by him coming back to Vancouver to meet with Adam Foote. They feel as though he's, showing some, he's showing that he's invested in this team, which is makes me think they're going to keep him. I mean, I already figured with, how close the deadline is getting, they're going to keep him, which again brings me to this next point. Canucks are still searching for their second line center. Obviously, the other day we did a video where we talked about the Minnesota Wild declined a trade package that the Canucks offered to them to try and get Marco Rossi. And, so they're still searching. And we all know it's going to be difficult to get that second line center because every team is looking for a top six center. And top six centers, they just don't grow on trees. Also, when it comes to trading Petey, they don't wish to create another problem by trading Petey away. Now, right now, they have a second line center problem due to the trade of JT Miller. They have, or it's more and more, I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there. They're going to have a winger problem when Brock Besser leaves in free agency. They're also going to have a problem if and or when Pius Suter leaves in free agency. So if they were to trade Petey, and if they didn't get a center in return, and a top six center at that would be another problem. So the Canucks do not want to create another problem by trading Petey away. They'd rather keep him. And I know that doesn't really mean much when it comes to him bouncing back, but I just wanted to throw that in there as well. But here is a reason why I think Petey will bounce back. Petey will be motivated, hopefully, to get back to the player he once was. In essence, shutting up all the haters and proving everyone wrong, that he still can be that 100+ point player. But yeah, I just really think that, he's had one bad season, and it unfortunately happened last season after he signed a $11.6 million contract. Yes, that is not a good look on Petey to, crap the bed and start underperforming after he signs such a mega deal. But as I mentioned in this point, with the whole, players with his skill level don't just drop off, mysteriously out of the blue, out of nowhere. I forgot to mention the last part. A lot of players go through having a down year or two. And this is exactly what Petey went through this past season. He went through a down year. Now, I know Canucks fans, that bothers you because he signed an $11.6 million contract and he wasn't a 100-point player right after he signed it. He did not perform in the playoffs against the Edmonton Oilers and the Nashville Predators. He didn't essentially show up. And then we come to find out that he had that tendonitis in his knee, which he suffered in January. We went over that in part 2 of this EP40 Chronicles. And I totally get it. You guys weren't happy. You were like, this guy didn't perform in the playoffs. He's soft. Get rid of him. Yada, yada, yada. I also get it. You guys have lost faith in Pettersson because of his struggles this past season and the whole JT PD rift. It's caused everyone, myself included, to lose faith in PD and whether or not he can get back to the 100-plus point player that he was a couple seasons ago. But, realistically, I do think he can bounce back, and I'm going to, in this part, answer that big question that we had at the start. The big question, will PD bounce back next season? Yes, I do think he's going to bounce back. And it's a lot of it has to do with some of the points that I made, with, where is it? And I'm going to keep hammering home on this one in particular. Again, players with his skill level, they don't drop off just out of the blue, out of nowhere. And, him being motivated, I think will help what he's done so far this offseason. Obviously, we don't have a in-depth look at what exactly he's done this offseason. We're not like the paparazzi, following him around everywhere, seeing, where he's working out, what he's eating, yada, yada. We'll probably have a little bit more information or details about that closer towards the season. But right now, I think PD, as I mentioned, I think he will absolutely bounce back. Will he be that 100-point player again? Maybe, maybe not. But as I've said before, not necessarily on this channel, but in like chats and discussions, when it comes to whether or not PD will bounce back, I'd be satisfied with 80 points, 90 points. It doesn't have to be 100. Sure, him being an $11.6 million player, you expect 100-plus points every season or something close to it. But at the end of the day, I'd be satisfied with 80 plus, 85 plus, 90. To me, that's good enough, at least in my opinion. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. Do you guys agree with that? Would you be satisfied with 80 plus points? Not necessarily exactly 100, but at least minimum 80. Do you guys agree with that? Let me know in the comment section down below. And yeah, do you guys also let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about these points that I made, in regards to, when Miller was traded, the noise was still there. The locker room was divided. Clearly that played a factor in not just PD's lack of production, or rather I should say continued lack of production, but it affected the entire team. and that the entire team was in the shits because of this whole rift, and it really damaged that locker room, and there was no cohesion because of this, and it wasn't just going to go away like a fly that you swat away. It's not just going to go away, or a bug that you swat away. It's not. It's going to still be there. So again, the whole I'm obviously feeling pretty optimistic when it comes to Petey and this offseason, especially with hearing that management, as I mentioned, are pleased with how things are going. I mean, the fact that they're impressed that Petey himself came back to Vancouver when he was already in Sweden. He paused his offseason training to come to Vancouver. That's a long-ass flight to meet with new head coach Adam Foote, have dinner with Quinn Hughes and Thatcher Demko. Clearly, we don't know what they discussed. I would have to assume, as I mentioned, that it was stuff to do with, the season, his off-season and whatnot. But just the fact that management was impressed by him, investing in this team. He wants to be here, and he wants to be the best player that he can be. And yeah, so at the end of the day, that big question, will Petey bounce back? Yes, I think he will. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with how Petey plays this upcoming season. Obviously, he's going to be under a microscope to start the season. And we're probably going to have this discussion again, halfway, maybe December, January of the season. And I'm looking forward to that discussion. Obviously, I want Petey to bounce back. I want him to at least get back to a 80-point player, at least 80 plus. Doesn't necessarily, my expectations are not, that high when it comes to Petey. But once again, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this. Let me know also what you guys thought about this series, the EP40 Chronicles. So it was just a little something that I wanted to do. I know EP40 is quite the talking point amongst Canuck fans. And yeah, so let me know what you guys thought about this 3-part series. Maybe I'll do something similar down the line. Obviously, right now, with the Stanley Cup Finals officially over, it's full on into trade talk. I am going to be coming out with a video talking about Pius Suter, as there's been some development with the Canucks and Pius Suter since that Marco Rossi trade package was declined by Minnesota. So stay tuned for that. I also have a video that that's going to be coming out later today, where we talk about bargain bin free agents. Basically what that means is we're going to be looking at free agents, upcoming UFAs who are relatively cheap. If you really think about it, these are guys that, if you guys, I won't dive too much into it, but it's basically guys who don't cost a whole lot of money and could produce for the Canucks, similar to the likes of Kiefer Sherwood did, similar to Kevin Lankinen. Like, these guys could potentially wind up being steals for the Vancouver Canucks. So we're going to go over that. Stay tuned for that. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all Canucks content, whether that's Abby Canucks, Vancouver Canucks, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change to find our Facebook page. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. You can find us on X at Line Change Van. You can find us on TikTok at the.line.change.po. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms, as well as if you prefer an audio version of this podcast. You can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, once again, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us. It is greatly appreciated. But that's going to do it for me in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the EP40 Chronicles. As I mentioned, those couple of videos that are coming out, be on the lookout for those. And I'll see you guys, or rather, let's go Canucks. Let's go Abby Canucks. and I'll see you guys in the next video.